Hello, my name is Matthias Cavodi. I'd like to welcome you guys to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the Evolutionary War. It was a crossover. It came out in 1988, a couple years before I got into comic books. I was actually 7 years old when this came out. Wow, I feel I feel real old. Thing is, in this crossover, you had to have High Evolutionary. He was the main bad guy to this story. But in this particular time that we're going to cover today with the X-Men, he's not the bad guy of the story. It's like the Evolutionary War, as a crossover, it was okay. Like some of the tie-ins were pretty good, but like the overarching crossover itself, it was just pretty mediocre, at least for me. But in this particular tie-in, it's sort of weird because High Evolutionary is sort of like a good guy in the story, and a lot of things just don't make sense. It's a pretty weird tie-in. But I just really wanted to focus on one particular thing. Well, the story is written by Chris Claremont, but the Art Adams, he's my favorite artist of all time. I love his work, especially his work in the 80s. It's like, at least for me, it's like he was at his creative zenith. Like his more modern stuff, it's okay. It's just fine, but back then, man, he was killing it. And like it looks like you can see the 1980s hair and stuff like that, but you have the 80s look, obviously, but at the same time, it feels really timeless. He was able to do art that doesn't feel dated. I'm having a real hard time with the binding of this compilation issue. It's sort of old, so I'm afraid if I open it up too much, the binding's going to give out on me, like it has already done in another part. That I hate when that happens. One of my fantastic subscribers, I have very few subscribers, but I love them, actually asked me about how did I fix comic books that had issues with binding. And I told him I never had issues. Well, for the first time, I'm having to deal with something like that. So the story starts off. Storm freaks out. She flies away. No one, the X-Men don't understand what's going on. This is the X-Men era where they're in Australia. So, and I just really love this time of the X-Men and the lineup. It was pretty cool. You had Colossus, Havoc, Longshot, Psylocke, Dazzler, Wolverine, and Madeline Pryor would work the computers and stuff like that. It was a really interesting lineup. So they're in Australia. During this time, also, they had taken over the Reavers base. The Reavers were this cyborg bad guys that had enslaved this dude. His name's Portal. Because the cool thing is that they didn't have a jet. They didn't have the Blackbird during this time. They used Portal, Gateway, sorry, to create Portal so they could go all over the Earth, go on their missions. And Gateway's like, he's really mysterious. He doesn't talk. Enslaved by the Reavers previously. The X-Men liberated, and he sort of just stuck around. So the X-Men see that Storm went flying to Antarctica. She's probably going to Savage Land. So they're going to see what happened to their teammate, to see why she freaked out. They arrived on Savage Land and discovered it's barren. It's not there anymore. Wolverine sort of freaked. Like most of the X-Men have ties to Savage Land. Like Wolverine just loves to romp around there every once in a while, just release tension, hunt down dinosaurs, or do whatever Wolverine likes to do to unwind. This too has like this love interest of one of the native people that lived land, that he started a relationship in one of the X-Men missions there. So thing is, they want to find out what the hell happened. In a previous story, which I'm not really sure I think it takes place in the Avengers, this giant robot called Terminus destroys the Savage Land. Again, I don't know why. My memory the best. It's sort of cool to have not the best memory in the world, because I go back and reread these stories like, oh shit, this happened. Oh my god. So that's sort of positive part of having bad memory. But the X-Men want to investigate, get to the bottom of this. At the same time, we have the High Evolutionary. He arrives. He's like a really interesting character. Like sometimes he's a good guy. Sometimes he does very ethically questionable things. Sometimes he's a straight up villain. Like in this crossover, he's a villain most of the time, but in this part, he's sort of like a good guy. He arrives to Savage Land, and he's sort of heartbroken. Land has been destroyed. There was like so much potential for investigation and science and so on and so forth. He sees this flower. He wants to investigate it, and Terminus is back. The giant robot that destroyed the Savage Land captures him. The X-Men see this happen. They jump in, start battling against Terminus. Terminus is about the size, I guess, height of Galactus or some guy like that, just to have like compare him. So the X-Men obviously go up against this giant robot. They're having trouble, obviously, because they're way overpowered compared to this dude. Longshot trips and falls and disappears. He sort of like seemingly fell into another dimension. There's going to be stuff related to that. High Evolutionary takes Havoc back to his investigation base. We get the introduction. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure this is the first time Zadalan is presented to us as readers. Later on, she's going to have a story arc with Magneto. She's like sort of sees Magneto's daughter, something like that. Like this character, up to my knowledge, has been totally forgotten over the years. Then out of nowhere, while the X-Men are trying to investigate where the hell Longshot is, they find this giant wolf's head. Most of the inhabitants of Savage Land somehow got on the back of this giant mystical wolf and went to another dimension, and they were all saved. And this totally doesn't make sense here. Like, here's everyone of Savage Land is on top of this giant wolf. It doesn't make sense. A lot of magic is involved. But the thing is, the giant wolf goes up against Terminus for the fight for the land of Savage Land. This full-on epic battle that looks pretty awesome. We discover that the Terminus is being controlled by this villain, X-Men villain. His name's Garruk. That why he's doing this, because he sort of really loves Savage Land, and how did he end up inside of Terminus, and why is he trying to kill everyone? But the thing is, the X-Men are able to come out on top. Garruk comes to his senses, like, what the hell was I doing? Also, we have a pretty interesting plot thread here that has been totally forgotten over the years. Colossus had a thing with one of these ladies from the tribe, one of these tribes in Savage Land, and it's hinted very heavily that this kid is actually Colossus's kid. Colossus totally suspects this in this story. Like, it feels like he's sort of playing dumb. So, anyone at Marvel, hey, don't forget Colossus had a kid. There's potential for that for his stories. Like, the kid can come back really pissed off. It's like, where were you, Dad? You left me. The High Evolutionary uses Garruk's powers to recreate the Savage Land just the way it was. Very conveniently, Ka-zar and Shanna the She-Devil, who are the two most famous people from Savage Land, reappear. They were on a trip to New York or something like that. So happily, they're back right when the whole Savage Land comes back. So I'm going to leave this video here. Evolutionary War, it's an okay crossover. It's like, it's worth maybe a brief read through, maybe just reading a couple of the core tie-ins. This one wasn't the best, but I really wanted to focus on Art Adams' art, which, at least for me, is a real treat. See you guys next time. Bye.